explainer containing TEPSA's recommendations to the incoming Austrian Presidency of the Council of the EU. The Austrian Presidency takes over the Council at times when citizens' expectations are still very high on the implementation of policies doing away with financial and economic crisis and with the migration and refugee flows consequences. The second half of 2018 will also be the time of intense legislative activity in Brussels, in climate of heightened political exposure and sensitivities ahead of the elections in 2019. Austrian Presidency will also conclude on the trio program of the Estonian, Bulgarian and Austrian presidencies, which focuses on finding common solutions for a common future and on delivering on citizens' expectations. The Austrian Presidency's priorities strongly reflect on these objectives and principles, and the 2018 agenda really reinforces the need for the common solutions, in particular when it comes to negotiations on the multi-annual financial framework and on Brexit negotiations. There is also an absolute need to deliver on further solutions to manage migration waves and refugee flows. This is also why our recommendations broadly focus on the areas of security, migrations, MFF and Brexit negotiations, taking into account the role that the rotating presidency has in the EU system and the timing of these recommendations. Austria took over the helm of the Council today.
The 6 months of the Austrian presidency will be the crucial period of the Brexit negotiations. The Austrian presidency should try to agree a withdrawal agreement with the United Kingdom at the meeting of the European Council in October. This withdrawal agreement needs to reflect the mandates of the European Council and the political expectations of the European Parliament, which will be invited to endorse and ratify the agreement afterwards. Particularly important in this context will be the rights and expectations of the Republic of Ireland, the United Kingdom's land neighbour, which remains within the European Union. We believe that it will be advantageous both for the United Kingdom and for the European Union to have a standstill agreement after Brexit formally comes into being until the end of 2020. The withdrawal agreement will need to be accompanied by a political declaration, and in that political declaration it was made clear that the United Kingdom cannot expect outside the European Union to enjoy the same benefits as it enjoyed when it was a member of the European Union. Particularly important in this context will be the red lines relating to the customs union and the internal market, which the British government has seen fit to adopt for itself. It will also be important to emphasise in the withdrawal agreement that the integrity and autonomy of the European Union's decision-making procedures must be maintained after Britain leaves the European Union. Cherry-picking is a phrase which is often used in the context of these negotiations. The withdrawal agreement and the political declaration must make clear that that's utterly unacceptable to the European Union.
The next months will be crucial for the European Union to take a decisive leap forward in the fields of defence, security and migration. In the defence area, the Member States and also the Austrian Presidency will have to make sure to respect the commitments undertaken in the PESCO framework and also to make the most in terms of political engagement to establish a connection between PESCO projects and the newly established European Defence Fund. But 2018 will be very important also for the civilian side of EU crisis management. There is a new capabilities development plan foreseen and also a civilian compact to be adopted by the end of the year. Here the Austrian Presidency is particularly well placed to take these efforts forward in cooperation with the like-minded countries. Finally, it is very clear that the Austrian government is very much committed to maintain migration high in the EU agenda. Of course, a number of measures can be taken to ensure better border management, including return and readmission agreements with third countries and better information sharing. However, it is clear that in order to ensure effective and comprehensive management of migration, these actions should be undertaken in line with the commitments under the human rights frameworks, in connection with the commitments for the Sustainable Development Goals, and also to push for greater solidarity among EU member states, including quota systems.
Some weeks ago, the European Commission presented its legislative proposals for the next multi-annual financial framework, and now Member States discussed with the Commission about the specific effects and the specific details of these proposals, and during the Austrian Presidency, the obvious distance positions should be narrowed. I think this is a very important priority for the Austrian Presidency, to narrow the gap between the Member States' position and between the European Commission and the Member States. Moreover, I think since the European Parliament has to give its consent at the final agreement, for a final Council agreement, the European Parliament should also be involved since the very beginning of the negotiation in the negotiation. So the Austrian Presidency should inform the European Parliament, but also invite members of the European Parliament to participate at the informal Council meetings. Since the Austrian government made already quite clear that it is against an increase of national contributions, the Austrian Presidency could focus during the next 6 months in a discussion on new revenues.
It is interesting to take into account that it's obviously impossible that in the next semester the negotiations are going to finish, and probably before the European Parliament elections, we may hope progress, but probably will be in the following semester or even next year when the negotiations will finish.
Thank you for watching. We will prepare next recommendations to the Romanian Council Presidency, which will take office on the 1st of January 2019.